He was thrown out of a luxury hotel in front of a stunned crowd, all because he didn't look the part. Videos of his public humiliation went viral, igniting a firestorm over racism and classism. But no one could have predicted that this man would return, not as a guest, but as the new owner, determined to dismantle the very system that rejected him. What he did next will shock even those who've seen it all. But let's start from the beginning. David Carter, a black millionaire, stepped into the Regency Hotel, his sneakers squeaking softly against the polished marble floors. The chandelier overhead sparkled with the opulence of a bygone era, its light refracting off every gilded surface. David's casual attire, distressed jeans, a plain hoodie, and simple sneakers, clashed starkly with the tailored suits and designer dresses of the guests lounging in the lobby. As he approached the reception desk, the soft hum of conversation shifted, replaced by sharp whispers. A middle-aged receptionist, her hair pulled into a severe bun, glanced up with a perfunctory smile that faltered the moment she saw him. "Sir," she began, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" David offered a calm smile, sliding his reservation confirmation across the counter. Her expression soured as she skimmed the document, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face before being replaced by a steely glare. She muttered, reluctant to make eye contact. "We'll prepare your room," she said curtly, her voice laced with irritation. Later that evening, David entered the grand dining hall, its ambiance suffused with soft jazz and candlelight. Seated at a table near the window, he relished the view of the city skyline. However, his moment of tranquility was interrupted when Richard Whitmore, the hotel manager, marched toward him. Dressed impeccably in a three-piece suit, Richard's demeanor screamed authority. His lips curled into a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir," he said, leaning close enough for his cologne to overpower David's meal, "we have a standard to maintain. Your attire is causing discomfort among our guests." David raised his eyebrows, his tone even. "I don't see how my attire impacts the quality of my meal." Richard's voice grew louder. "I'll have to ask you to leave." The room fell silent, all eyes on David as security escorted him out. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and a few phones were raised to capture the scene. That night, staring out of his penthouse window, David made a silent vow. The next time he stepped into the Regency, he wouldn't just be a guest, he'd be its owner. David Carter's expulsion from the Regency Hotel became a flashpoint for national conversations about racism and classism after videos of the incident flooded social media. Clips of the hotel manager's dismissive remarks and David's calm composure were dissected on news channels, sparking outrage. Online, hashtags like #racism@Regency and #dressed-for-success trended for days. Despite the public storm, David remained quiet, refusing interviews and avoiding the spotlight. Behind the scenes, however, he was methodical. Leveraging his vast network and financial resources, David orchestrated a bold plan. Within weeks, through a shell company, he acquired the hotel. His identity as the buyer was deliberately concealed, fueling speculation within the industry, but ensuring he could act unimpeded. A month later, the first ripple of change stirred through the Regency. Staff received a curt memo. A surprise inspection by the new owner was imminent. Whispers swept through the opulent halls. Who was this mysterious owner? Speculations ranged from a tech mogul to an eccentric aristocrat, but no one guessed it was the casually dressed man they had humiliated weeks before. On inspection day, David arrived unannounced, accompanied by a small, serious team. Wearing his signature understated attire, a navy sweater and slacks. He strolled into the lobby as if returning home. The staff froze as he approached the reception desk, where whispers turned into stunned silence. When Richard Whitmore, the manager, appeared, his confident stride faltered as recognition hit. His face drained of color. David's cool smile held no malice, only purpose. "I've seen firsthand how this establishment treats those it deems unworthy," David announced, his voice carrying across the silent lobby. "That ends today." Staff gathered nervously as David outlined sweeping reforms. Diversity training and anti-discrimination workshops would become mandatory. Employee conduct would undergo immediate review, and policies would be rewritten to ensure dignity and respect for every guest and worker. As he finished, David's gaze swept across the room, landing on Richard. This hotel's reputation will no longer be defined by exclusion, but by excellence. The message was clear. A new era had begun at the Regency. Richard Whitmore's panic quickly gave way to desperation as the reality of David's leadership took hold. Determined to regain control, Richard scrambled to uncover dirt on the new owner. His attempts were futile. David's past was pristine: philanthropy, community investment, and a reputation for integrity. This only heightened Richard's frustration. Meanwhile, employees who had long suffered under Richard's toxic leadership began to speak out. Bolstered by David's transparent approach, they anonymously submitted grievances detailing years of workplace abuse. Stories of public humiliation, unfair firings, and discriminatory practices painted a grim picture of the environment Richard had cultivated. David organized a pivotal staff meeting in the hotel's ballroom. Employees, seated cautiously at round tables, found themselves encouraged by the new owner's presence. At the front, David stood with a calm yet commanding demeanor, addressing the room. "This hotel has operated under fear for too long. That changes now," he began. He invited employees to voice concerns anonymously via a digital platform. As the testimonials poured in, a troubling pattern emerged: pay disparities along racial and gender lines, favoritism, and a culture of intimidation. David listened intently, his silence conveying both anger and resolve. Each testimony chipped away at Richard's shrinking support network. Allies, once loyal out of fear or ambition, distanced themselves as the true extent of his misconduct became undeniable. The tipping point came during a high-profile charity gala hosted at the Regency. Attended by influential figures and media personalities, the event was meant to showcase the hotel's revival under David's ownership. As guests mingled in the chandelier-lit ballroom, David took the stage. He spoke with charisma and candor, intertwining his vision for the hotel with a broader message. Hospitality thrives on inclusivity. It's not just about service. It's about creating spaces where everyone feels valued. His words struck a chord, drawing applause from the crowd. Meanwhile, Richard lurked in the back, his face twisted in fury as whispers of his misconduct spread among the guests. When David signaled security, Richard's exit was swift and final. The applause crescendoed as Richard was led out, marking the end of an era of tyranny at the Regency. Under David Carter's leadership, the Regency Hotel transformed into a symbol of excellence and inclusivity. The change was immediate and palpable. Among David's first acts was appointing a new general manager, Claire Morales, a sharp, compassionate leader who had been overlooked under Richard's regime. Her appointment was met with quiet cheers from the staff, who saw her as one of their own and a harbinger of the hotel's new direction. The changes were not just managerial, but cultural. Staff underwent diversity and sensitivity training, and policies were rewritten to emphasize respect and equity. Employees, once fearful and disengaged, now worked with a renewed sense of purpose. The shift rippled outward, evident in every detail. The warm smiles at the reception desk, the genuine care from housekeeping, and the ease with which guests from all walks of life felt welcomed. Guests noticed the transformation almost immediately. The once rigid, exclusive atmosphere was replaced by one of warmth and vibrancy. The clientele became more diverse, a reflection of David's vision for the hotel. The Regency thrived, not only as a business, but as a beacon of progressive hospitality, earning accolades from both guests and industry leaders. David's story became a symbol of triumph over prejudice, inspiring other businesses to reflect on their own practices. Media outlets covered the Regency's rebirth extensively, highlighting how one man's vision could dismantle systemic biases and replace them with fairness and opportunity. One evening, David stood in the lobby, now dressed in an impeccable tailored suit, surveying the hotel's activity. His eyes fell on a young family at the reception desk, a father, mother, and 2 children. The father hesitated, casting uncertain glances at a staff member. Sensing the man's discomfort, David stepped forward with a reassuring smile. "Welcome to the Regency," he said, his voice warm and sincere. "This is your home for the next few days." The father's shoulders relaxed as David's words set the tone. Watching the family settle in, David felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had done more than take ownership of the hotel. He had reshaped its soul, turning a legacy of exclusion into one of belonging and inclusion.